Welcome to Meet the Kreeps. There Goes the Neighborhood by Kiki Thorpe. Chapter 4. Hideous, Polly told Petey. Hideous, he replied. Right, said Polly. How about abominable? Petey spelled that correctly, too. Polly looked down at the list of spelling words. Petey, you already know these, she said. I don't see why we have to go through them again. You promised, Petey whined. We made a deal. Polly had finally struck a bargain with her brother. She agreed to drill him on spelling words every night as long as he followed a few simple rules. Use a knife and a fork. Don't talk with your mouth full. And use a tissue instead of your finger, she reminded him as he reached for his nose. Petey plucked a tissue from the box and blew. Petey, how come you want to win this spelling bee so badly? Polly asked him. I don't know, I just do, said Petey. The smell of tomato sauce wafted from the Winkler's kitchen. Spaghetti, Polly thought with a shudder. She hoped her dad wasn't trying another experiment. It's time to get on with the mission, Mom. With Mission Mom, Polly thought, glancing out the window. She could see Miss Tulip standing in her front yard, admiring the sunset. The warm light deepened the pink of her dress and made her face look especially rosy. Now is the perfect time for them to meet, thought Polly. This could be so romantic. Listen, Petey, we'll finish this later, she said, shoving the word list back at him. Dad, she yelled, come here, hurry. Dr. Winkler rushed out of the kitchen, still wearing his sauce-spattered apron. What is it? He asked. Is someone bleeding? No, Dad, you just need to see this beautiful sunset, Polly told him. Her dad sighed. Polly, he said, I really don't have time. But Polly had begun to pull him toward the door. You know what they say. You have to stop and smell the roses now and then. When they got outside, Polly was relieved to see that Miss Tulip was still standing in her front yard. Miss Tulip! She yelled over to her. Come watch the sunset with us. The view's better from here. Polly, her dad whispered, I really don't think that's a good... Well, hello, Lobelia, he said as Miss Tulip stepped onto their porch. Hello, Wally, she replied. First names, thought Polly. Excellent. She retreated to the far end of the porch to watch them talk. So how is business these days? Miss Tulip asked her dad. Oh, you know, plenty of toothaches keeping me busy. Miss Tulip nodded and smiled, and then her eyes fell on the Winkler's front lawn. Instantly, her smile vanished. What is that? She exclaimed. Dr. Winkler looked where she was pointing. A dandelion? A dandelion, Miss Tulip huffed. And do you know what a dandelion is? Pretty? Dr. Winkler guessed. It's a weed, Miss Tulip screeched. Uh-oh. Dr. Winkler gave Miss Tulip a pained smile. It's just one small dandelion. Before you know it, the one small dandelion will be blowing its seed everywhere, she bellowed. All it would take is the one gust of wind to ruin my whole garden. Miss Tulip's face was now as pink as her dress. Dr. Winkler had started to look like he was the one with the toothache. Meanwhile, the clouds behind the old mansion were changing from red to brilliant grape like purple. Wow, this sunset keeps getting better, Polly said loudly, hoping to distract them. Everyone turned to look at the sky, which suddenly turned from purple to violet green. You're right, Polly, said her dad. This is quite a sunset. But surely that isn't the sunset, Miss Tulip said. She sounded worried. She's right, thought Polly, but what is it? The clouds had now formed a dense fog around the Kreeps' house. Suddenly, Polly realized they weren't clouds at all. It's smoke, she exclaimed. The thick green smoke was billowing from the Kreeps' basement. I wonder if I should call the fire department, Dr. Winkler said. Just then, Veronica Kreep came strolling out her front door. When she saw them all staring at her, she waved. Hello, she called. Lovely night, isn't it? Do you know there's green smoke coming out of your house? Dr. Winkler yelled to her. Veronica looked around. Oh, dear, you're right, she said. She calmly walked over and rapped at the basement window. A moment later, Damon's spiky head appeared. He was wearing giant goggles that made him look like an insect. Darling, Veronica said, there's green smoke. Sorry, Mother, Damon said. He disappeared back into the basement. A second later, the smoke changed. Now it was blue. Veronica smiled. Much better. Damon's our scientist, she exclaimed. She explained, walking over to the Winkler's front porch. He's very talented, but he still makes mistakes now and then. After all, he's only 10. Miss Tulip covered her nose. That smoke Smells terrible, she complained. It's not poisonous, is it? Hardly at all, Veronica said brightly. No sooner were the words out of her mouth than a gust of wind came up. It blew the cloud of smoke straight into Miss Tulip's front yard. Her garden disappeared into the blue fog. When the fog cleared, they saw that all the petals had fallen off Miss Tulip's pink flowers. Miss Tulip gasped. My petunias! She squealed. My roses, my zinnias! She went scurrying back to her garden. Now that's too bad. I hope they grow back, Dr. Winkler said, but the corners of his mustache twitched. Polly could tell he was trying not to smile. He turned to Veronica and held out his hand. Wally Winkler, he said. Veronica Kreeps, she replied, shaking it. Nice to meet you. Polly, her dad said, you were right. Sometimes you need to stop and smell the roses, or what's left of them, he added with a glance at Miss Tulip's yard. With a sigh, Polly took out her notebook and crossed Miss Tulip's name off her list. If you enjoyed There Goes the Neighborhood in Meet the Kreeps series by Kiki Thorpe, you might want to try the next few. Kiki Thorpe, the author who wrote Meet the Kreeps, is also the author of these 3 series of chapter books. You may want to try these.